Welcome to BAL Briefings, conversations with personalities from the theater world and beyond. I'm your host, Teri Black, and today we're very happy to have as our guest, Professor David C. Cassidy, science historian and playwright. Hi, David. Thanks for coming by. So nice to see you.
Hi, Teri. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, David, you wrote 3 plays, all of which were developed and produced here at BAL Productions. And all 3 of your very interesting plays are about historically scientific figures, as I like to call them. Let's go chronologically and start with your first play, Farm Hall, which is about Germany's top 5 scientists who were captured by the Allies during World War II and held in a place called Farm Hall in Cambridge, England. Please tell us who those 5 scientists were.
First of all is Werner Heisenberg.
Okay.
Then Otto Hahn, a Nobel Prize winner, along with Heisenberg. Walter Gerlach, who was the last administrator of the German fission project. Kurt Diebner, a reactor technician, and Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker.
A mouthful.
Yes.
Okay, and how long were these people detained for?
Exactly six months, according to British law.
All right, so they were detained in this British manner, I guess, called Farm Hall. They were not starved, they were not tortured, they were actually treated quite well. They were bugged, however, by the British, trying to get some good information about them, especially during the war. However, not only were they treated rather well, they also had access to the radio. And one day in August 1945, they were listening to the BBC and they heard some rather shocking news. Please tell us what that is.
They were shocked by the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And they thought that they were way ahead of the Allies. And hadn't even gotten the reactor going. And it's sort of the crisis point of the whole play when they have to, their whole world is turned upside down.
The whole world is turned upside down. But also, weren't they also fearful of some kind of retribution that if indeed they were released and sent back to Germany, what would their government do to them since they did not accomplish anything close to that? Weren't they fearful about that?
They were quite fearful that the population would blame them for not getting the winning weapon that would win the war.
Right, and winning the war. And now with these 5 people, so they came back, but they seem to do rather well. Tell us, they succeeded in their later lives, did they not?
They did. They were actually went to the top of the science world in West Germany. They helped with the reconstruction and development of science policy.
So they really got what I would call, I don't know if you agree with me on this, a sweet deal.
Yes.
They got
it through from day one.
So now, speaking of deals, let's talk about your next play, again about historically scientific figures. And in this one, you have a group of scientists who deserved to get the Nobel Prize, but unfortunately did not receive it. Tell us who those are.
Okay, the first is Rosalind Franklin.
Okay.
From England, and she worked in biology on the double helix.
And then the DNA. Okay. Who else do we have?
Lisa Meitner from Austria and Berlin earlier, and worked in fission.
Okay, and she was like in the 1930s or 40s, or maybe even earlier than that.
She was working in Germany during the 30s until 1938 or 39.
Okay, and then who else do we have?
We have Dmitry Mendeleev from Russia, who invented the periodic table of the elements.
Okay, and that was in the late 19th century, early 20th century, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Okay, and we have, and he's Russian, obviously, with a name like that, yes.
Ralph Alpher from the US.
Okay.
Who did astrophysics and the cosmic microwave background. He predicted it.
And then we had one more. There was a lady, I believe, that's still alive.
Right. Jocelyn Bell Burnell in England, and also an astrophysicist.
Okay. And is she also now a dame, I believe?
Yes. So she's...
Okay. Now, of these people that really did not get the prize and they deserved it, who do you feel out of all these different characters was treated the most unjustly?
Well, it's between Rosalind Franklin and Lisa Meitner. They both should have had breakthrough things. Franklin died before the prize was awarded. Lisa Meitner was left out and Otto Hahn, who got the prize, her co-worker,
Right.
did not really recognize her afterwards.
So would you also say, I would also say, as a person watching the play or reading the play, that Rosalind Franklin had a double tragedy because she did die at a very young age. Okay. And I think her discovery of the DNA and her working on and doing the research actually led to her death, which is, you could make a whole other play about it. All right, so now let's go to your most recent play, Einstein's Wife, which you also co-authored a book about. And here she is. This is Mileva Marish. And she was actually Einstein's first wife, but we won't go into that right now. But anyway, so unusual of that era, because Mileva Marish, who was from Serbia, met Einstein when they were both students at the Polytechnical in Zurich. She was 20 and he was 17. Imagine being a woman of that era, studying to be a scientist. In addition to that, she also had what we would politely call today a disability. She was also crippled. So she and Einstein were studying together. They were mad about each other and mad about science. They had this passionate love affair, which did produce a child out of wedlock, a daughter, Lisa. Tell us name. Yes. And nobody ever really knew what happened to that daughter. The daughter was adopted, given away. We don't know what happened to the daughter. And as a matter of fact, some years ago here at BAL Production, we did a play, a solo play about the daughter called Mass, M-A-S-S, that was written by Lauren Gunderson. Today, it's still a mystery. However, getting back to Mileva and Albert, they eventually married. They had 2 sons. Mileva took care of the house. She took care of the sons. She helped proofread Albert's papers, but she never finished her education. She never became a scientist. She never became a teacher. And there was a lot of bitterness about this. Now, there is a school of thought and or a group of people, if you will, that believe that Mileva really did do much more than proofread Einstein's papers, that she, in fact, contributed to some of his discoveries and some of his work, and that she never received the credit that she deserved. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we looked into it, my 2 co-workers or co-authors and I, and we were really searching for some, hard evidence about this. And we wanted to find somewhere in the records that would support that. Problem is they were married for 10 years or so.
I see.
And so they're not writing letters to each other. We don't know what's going on in their house. But from her letters to her friends and to her family and everything, we could not find any evidence.
Did she ever mention any of her work in her letters that you have? Or the selected work?
She didn't mention any work that she was doing in all the letters that we've seen.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned and the research that you and your fellow scientists, historians have done, as far as you're concerned, there's no proof, so to speak, that Mileva contributed to any of Einstein's theories.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that she didn't, but we can't nail it down. We don't have the evidence for it, the historical evidence.
Okay. All right. Well, David, time is running out here, so I have one more question for you. Thanks so much. And can you tell us, is there anything you're working on right now?
I've been looking at young J. Robert Oppenheimer. A lot has been written about his older Oppenheimer at the Manhattan Project and later in the security hearings in the 50s. But he had a very dramatic life before that. And I've been sort of looking at what could be done with it.
I think that would be very interesting. There's also, I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. I can't think. Dr. Atomic, there was also an opera about Oppenheimer. But that was mostly about him working in Los Alamos with the Manhattan Project and his relationship with his wife, Kathy. I think her name is Kathy, if I remember right.
Yeah, Catherine or Kitty, they called her.
So we look forward to hearing about it. Well, David, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing that with us. You know, you always have a home here at BAL Production. So we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to seeing your work. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Teri.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Please join us again for BAL Briefings. I'm Teri Black.